Hello everyone, I'm Vinny and I'm going to be recapping the Balance Patch January 2023 for cards. And it's a pretty decent patch. I'm just glad it's here. They didn't announce it. There was supposed to be a patch in January, but they didn't say anything, so I was starting to worry there wouldn't be, but there is. And it's starting out with 5th Parachute Brigade going from 0 to 1, however the op cost is buffed to 0. This is a pretty big nerf. I'm going to say this card went from 4-star down to 3-star. The reason this nerf is so huge is 1, it gets rid of the high roll potential where you could drop multiple of these for 0k. This makes combined arms a lot worse. This makes mobilize quite a bit worse as well. You can't do things like save these in hand and play them with Potez all on the 4k turn, which hurts a bit of the heal synergy as well. And the fact that you have to play this a turn later in the early game means you get one less tick of mobilize if it's living anyway. It's also not as big of a trade-off getting that 0 op cost as you might initially think. Because for example, with combined arms, they weren't moving this up a lot of the times because you want to leave it in the back so it can keep growing and not get blitzed into by certain units. So the trade-off is not amazing at all. It's gonna hurt two decks that were not at the top of the meta. So some could argue, was this called for? It would have been nice if they buffed those decks a little bit in some other way, perhaps. Mobilize was already very good, but probably wasn't quite tier 1. Now I think it's gonna be just that much worse. So overall, 4-star to 3-star on that one. Wait, I knew a guy with his last name, and his name was Luch, I want to say. So I'm gonna assume it's Baluch, the Baluch Regiment. So this card was okay for free to play, but realistically never ever played competitively. I'm gonna say 1-star to 2-star. When you compare it to the Milk Truck, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, having this stats compared to ramping is nowhere near close. You'd much rather ramp, but, you know, it's not inherently terrible. Britain has a lot of healing synergies as well, so this is, for free to play, this is a totally fine card now. Totally fine card. 1-star to 2-star. Now the Firefly, getting nerfed massively in the stats, frankly. However, they just slapped For the King on it. That order that does 5 to a tank. The upside is sometimes orders get punished by things like U-boats, Blackwatch. The downside is deployment gets punished by Patalyakov. But I think overall you'd rather be a deployment than an order. Firefly was a 2-star card before. I'm going to say it's a 3-star card now. Probably still not going to get played. Might see a little bit of play in the future, or definitely, well, I think it will see play in the future because right now the most popular British decks wouldn't want to play this. You either have air, which you have to be a really good non-air unit to be worthy of playing in air, and this is definitely not that. Credit denial, yes, you could play this in credit denial. It might just slot as is into credit denial, but otherwise just generic Commonwealth decks. I don't think this is worth it, but it is better, so I'm for it. 3 Fallschirmjager. This card was pretty bad, although I will say I did play this card in Pauper. I did get top 4 or top 8 back when they did those special rules tournaments, and my aggro, I was the only one bringing an aggro deck, I remember that, and it never lost until it finally got banned in top 4 against, I want to say, a Chinese player, I can't remember who. My point is, this is actually worse in the one format that it got played in, which was Pauper. Pauper Singleton, I want to say. And yeah, it's still not a tank, so I really still don't feel like playing it in Heinz. It doesn't get the buff until your turn, so it can still be traded into before being buffed. So this card went from a 1-star to a 1-star, I want to say, with the special note of saying that this is actually worse now for Probably free to play and singleton / popper. Weird. Afrika Regiment. This is actually a really, really big buff because 3 health is by far the worst health you can have in the game right now. You've Red Dawns, Air Superiority, Strategy Bombing, Carpet Bombing. It's just a really bad amount of health to have, so going from 3 to 4 is a huge buff. Still won't be played, but I will say this probably went from 1 star to borderline 3 star. Borderline. I try to stop myself from giving out 2 star or 0.5 star ratings, but whatever. I'll go ahead and I'll call it a 3 star now, just because I would still call the 3/6 Volks, you know, maybe a 3 star. It's more like 2.5 star, but it's certainly an amazing free to play card, and this is how I see this now. This card is now a really good free to play card. So whatever, maybe 3. Barrage getting buffed again. This card, which is fine because this card was still trash, but wow, what a huge buff. Literally halved in the cost, and now not only is it halved in the cost, but they increased the attack reduction, so you can give -4 attack reduction. I still do not think it'll be played competitively, but wow, this is going to be scary and annoying in ladder. It's going to really encourage you to trade into the units, because if you don't trade into the units, what if they play a Barrage and then your enemy gobbles up your units for free? That's going to really hurt. The 2 for 2 damage to a ground unit is actually awful. Like, that part arguably got nerfed. But this first effect now is probably going to be the primary effect that it's used for. This is going to be a really good card in draft all of a sudden. I will say this went from 1 star to 3 stars. 34th Guards. So very deserving of a nerf. Self-damage was possibly still will be the best deck in the game. The only deck that, or the only nation that really consistently won against it was Britain, with all the stall or removal effects on air with the bombers. But yeah, reducing it by 1 is a pretty big nerf, because realistically this will probably delay your lethal by a whole turn in most games, but it's still going to be a 0 mana 6/6 or 0 credit 6/6. What more can you really ask for? 5-star card to still 5-star card, maybe more. I mean, I think it's more. I think it'd be fair to say 6-star card. Try saying that fast. I'm not gonna embarrass myself like that. Not right now. But went from a 6-star card to a 5-star card on 34th Guards. That's the only nerf that self-damage receives, so the deck will still be very good, but it probably will no longer, maybe not probably, but I won't be surprised if it's no longer a 100% staple in competitive lineups, because right now it's a 100% staple. Everyone brings it in every lineup. A20B. This card went from 2-star to 2-star. I don't honestly feel like this is actively that much better. It's a really win more card. Like, if you're already hard winning, it's gonna be great. I think that this card will be very nice and free to play. Very, very nice and free to play, because Frontline was already a very good free to play deck, and the Soviet ally is very cheap, very affordable. If you want to do that with Frontline, you just have your sickles that are free, like literally completely free. Not only are they standards, but they come with the starter. You can shove these in, you can shove in Katusha, and that's good enough. Like, that's good enough. But in competitive, at the top of the ladder, your chocolate boys are going to get Winter Warfared, and then you're going to be playing a 4K 3/2 bomber, and you're going to get emoted on. That's what's going to happen. This is still trash. Well, not even trash, it's just bad. It's not like a 1-star or anything, it's just bad as all. Dauntless, pretty big buff, honestly. Brit US Air is an archetype for sure. However, once again, we're struggling with 3 health being the worst health total in the game. I don't want to pay 3 health just to get removed for 1k, or get swept up in some other AoE, so 1-star to 2-star, I will say. 2-star now. Now, this is the biggest buff we've had so far in this patch. The Aichi went from 1-star to 3-star, I want to say, and probably 4 in the future. So before, this card was obviously just not good enough, just really bad. Even in that brief moment where Japanese Italy Air was pretty good, you still did not play Aichi in that deck, which goes to show just how horrible it was. And that deck was reaching already for Japanese air units, and you still didn't play this. However, this card is so much better. So you get 1 health, which is huge, so you're not just getting killed by Sickle, Tora, and etc. However, it did get nerfed in the op cost by 1, but that's okay, I'll take it. And now the destruction is so much better, it's not even close. Instead of doing 1 damage, you'll get another Aichi D3A, which is a 3/2 smoke screen bomber. Smoke screen, that's the big thing. So you can trade into this, but you're just going to create a stronger plane. Like, literally, you're going to create a stronger plane. You're going to need some sort of order or deployment effect to get rid of that before it can attack. So you kind of just have to ignore the Aichi. And then you're pretty happy with that if you're the Aichi player. It's better than that, I can't remember the name of that piece of garbage. The 2/2 bomber elite thing that no one actually plays, whatever that is. So 1 star to 3 star, but I would look out for this in the future. It could get even better because there's no way they won't make a Japanese aggro air deck viable in the future, right? Surely the next expansion will add more for that. Ancient Empire, craziest change in a long time in Cards. It's just a total rework. It's not even similar at all. Now it sets your HQ to 8, and then you draw another Ancient Empire out of your deck. So it's like Chocolate Boys as an order. Very weird card. It's going to be worth experimenting with. What you're trying to do is you're going to Ancient Empire yourself to put you down low, and you're going to be playing the 3 Sunrise, the 4 copies of that 2/3 Blitz Artillery, and you're going to be playing the home defense. What other opportunities are there? Is there anything else that takes advantage of that in Japan? I want to say no. But what if they add more in the next expansion? So look out for this card. You are not gonna, I mean, you can try it, but you are not gonna play this in like Resistance. I've heard other talks about, oh, maybe it could be like a heal sometimes, but you would be playing like at max 1 probably, because man, you don't want to use up slots for that. It's gonna be a card that just is waiting in your hand, which makes your phony wars a lot worse. And yeah, I think it will only be used in a low health. It's gonna be like Soviet self damage, but different. So this was a 1-star card, and this is. I will be hopeful, and I'll call it a 3-star card. It will be a bad deck, but it will be a deck. It will be like a much worse version of Soviet self damage. Burn isn't insanely popular right now, but Jagro is always popular. German Burn fell off hard, so this isn't inherently always the worst thing ever, but even against air, you might not have enough time to reach the backline before you just like instantaneously die. So I'm not loving that. Next, we've got the PZL P11. Freakishly huge buff, reduced from 3 to 1 cost, only loses 1/1 in stats, and they also got rid of the stipulation saying that the exile cards are reduced to a minimum of 1. So, wow, 1-star card all the way to, I'm going to say 4-star. I'm going to say that this is the biggest buff in a long time that we've seen, ever since the days of taking Skytrain and Wellington from trash to unbelievably broken. Not as big as that, but close. So interesting. We'll have to see how this one plays out, but I think the Exile deck, I don't think I've ever seen anyone play the Exile deck. The words Exile deck don't even really mean anything. Like, when people say Poland, they mean Legions. That's how it has been for the longest time. No one plays any Polish decks except for Legions. But I think this will change that. I think the Exile deck will finally be a real deck. Because not only is the PZL super buffed, Hurricane PL gets a nice buff now too. Additionally, it's giving -1 op costs. So you can throw it on one of your other Exile units, and get a permanent -1 up cost as long as that unit is in exile. Okay. Not horrendous stats on the baseline 2, and you gotta remember, a lot of the times this is only costing 2. We can go PZL into Hurricane. Not bad. I will say this card went from... I feel like it wasn't that bad before, it's just like literally no one played it, so it was still a 1-star, I guess, just because no one literally played it. So I guess whatever, fine. 1 star to 2 stars. Because you got to consider the nation that cards are in, right? When you rate them. If this were in another nation, it could have been better, but it's Poland, and who's going to play Poland if it's not Legion? So you would never play that card. Now, 1 star to 3 star, easily. Next we have Battle Mach 1, Poland. Another hyper buff, this one from an easy 1 star to getting reduced half in the cost and the off cost, and it got another health. The effect is not quite as good, but who cares? The rest of these buffs are insane, and this effect is still very, very good. What it's doing now is when you deploy other exile units, that exile unit is getting 1+1/1. So what we can do is hopefully we get that PZL early. We can get this down, turn 2. Now this requires a lot to go right, because this can get easily gobbled by 35T, Red Dawn, and all sorts of things, but if the opponent can't immediately reach our backline, we're going to be building up stats really, really fast. And we can buff this this card itself with the Hurricane. Maybe then we can live through a 35T, maybe then we can trade into some units and just gobble them up because we're a bomber. So overall, the Exile deck went from a total joke to being a deck. It might even be a competitive deck, but it will probably just be worse than regular Brit Air. So I didn't give anything 5 stars, but I feel comfortable saying Battle MK went from 1 star to maybe 4 star. Certainly in the future, if they release more good support for that in the next set, which I think they probably will, definitely be on the lookout for this Exile deck. And lastly, mostly a nerf, Rima getting +1 attack, however, now mobilizing only adjacent units, so it can only possibly mobilize 2 at a time. But you gotta think, if you're really on the back foot, and you need this to guard your base, you're actually probably only mobilizing 1 unit at a time, making it even worse. The extra attack makes it better when just played on its own, but you already weren't super happy if that's what you had to spend your turn 5 doing. Not fantastic. I will say though, the difference between 3 attack and 4 attack is huge against Japan control decks. But that's about it. So Rima, I did love this card. I was the first person, unless someone can prove otherwise, I was the first person to make this work competitively when I qualified for OCC with 2 French decks. And yeah, 5 star down to... This is like the reason. This is like the reason you can play French ally unit decks. Otherwise, before they were all like resistant decks. So it might have gone all the way down to 3 star. Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's gone all the way down to 3 star for the Rima. All right, thank you very much for watching, everyone.